Have you ever opened your laptop and watched your entire future burn right in front of you? My name is Colton Ward, and at 2:47 a.m., in a dark, silent kitchen, I clicked on a live stream I never should have seen. And there she was, Lindsay, my fiancée, sitting on another man's lap, kissing him like I'd never mattered. Her friends cheering like it was some kind of joke, the caption glowing bright, "Last night of freedom, no regrets." And in that moment, it felt like someone kicked my chest in and put my humiliation on display for the whole damn town. If you've ever felt that kind of betrayal, drop a comment, subscribe, and follow this story, because it only gets worse from here. When I finally killed the live stream, the kitchen went quiet again. But it didn't matter. The noise was in my head now. I just sat there, staring at the dark laptop screen, seeing her face like it was burned into the glass. Her smile, his hands, that stupid caption. I reopened the link. Part of me was hoping I'd imagined it. Wrong person, old video, anything. Nope. Same bar, same dress, same tattoo on her shoulder I'd kissed 100 times. That was Lindsay. No doubt. No angle. No excuse. My eyes dropped to the viewer list. Names I recognized. Guys from town. Girls from her office. People we'd had beers with on Friday nights and sat beside in church on Sundays. They'd watched it live. They'd watched my life get kicked in the teeth, and not one of them had called me. Something in me went cold. I hit download, saved the video, took screenshots, every frame I might need. If she was going to tell the world I was crazy, unstable, insecure, I was damn sure not walking into that fight empty-handed. By the time the sky started to lighten behind the trees, I knew there was no going back to sleep. Or back to before. I made coffee I couldn't taste, opened Facebook, and just stared at that little status box. 8 years together, and it all came down to a blinking cursor and a handful of words. I dragged one of the screenshots in, the one where she's on his lap, her head thrown back, his hands on her waist, the caption glowing under it, "Last night of freedom, no regrets." My fingers moved before my brain caught up. First night of freedom, I guess. I changed my relationship status to single. My thumb hovered for a second, then I tagged her. Lindsay Carrington, then her father, William, a few close friends, people who actually mattered. I hit post. The notifications hit like hail. Likes, shocked reacts, comments, DMs, Ironwood waking up, pouring coffee, and finding out Colton Ward's wedding was on fire. It was petty. It was public. And yeah, it was my first shot. If you've ever reached that point, where you'd rather burn it down than be the quiet fool, you know exactly what that click feels like. The post had been live maybe 10 minutes when I heard tires crunching up the driveway. Engine off, car door slammed like a gunshot in the quiet. The front door flew open and there she was, Lindsay Carrington. Little black dress still on, heels dangling from one hand, mascara smeared under her eyes. She smelled like cheap vodka, vanilla perfume, and somebody else's cologne. "What the hell is wrong with you, Colton? Are you insane?" Not hi, not we need to talk, just that. I pushed my chair back and stood up slow. My hands were shaking, but my voice wasn't. "You saw it then," I said. "Good." She stormed into the kitchen, shoving her phone in my face. My post was on the screen, angry red notifications exploding under it. "You're humiliating me. My dad saw this. My boss saw this. You're making me look crazy." Right on cue, my phone lit up on the table. William Carrington. I hit speaker. "What is going on, Colton?" Ice cold. I didn't take my eyes off her. "Ask your daughter," I said. "She says it was just a joke." And right there, in my own kitchen, I got labeled unstable before I ever got to say what I'd seen. She left the way she came in. Door slam, engine roar, taillights bleeding red down the street, still crying to her daddy about how I was losing it. Then it was quiet again. Just me, the hum of the fridge, and the blue glow of my laptop. The notifications hadn't slowed down. They were piling up so fast the little globe icon looked like it was shaking. Friends, old classmates, clients, people who hadn't said my name in years, suddenly very interested in my life. Sometime after sunrise, someone screenshotted my post and sent it to Channel 5 Montana News. They slapped a headline on it. "Local groom calls off wedding after viral Bachelorette live stream." 10 minutes later, Ironwood Daily Chronicle shared it too. Now it wasn't just my circle, it was Ironwood. All of it. Guys whose roofs I'd patched, families whose heat I'd fixed in February, folks who used to wave when I drove by in my beat-up truck. My inbox filled up with, "You okay, man? Heard about Lindsay. Damn. What really happened?" I looked out at the same quiet street and knew one thing. In a small town like ours, once your pain hits Facebook, it stops belonging to you. The thing about small towns is this: you never suffer alone for long. By 8 a.m., my doorbell rang. I opened it to find Mrs. Evelyn Porter, my retired next-door neighbor, standing there with a casserole dish and that look old ladies get when they smell fresh gossip. "Oh, Colton, honey," she said, brushing past me like she lived there. "I saw the news on Facebook. Such a shame." She set the casserole on the counter, eyes flicking straight to my laptop, like she expected it to start talking. "I always wondered about those late nights of hers," she added casually, like she was talking about the weather. I frowned. "What late nights?" "Oh, at the office," she said. "Lindsay told everyone she was working late, but her car left the Carrington building around 5:30 most days. Then I'd see it back in the lot around 9 or 10. Strange kind of overtime, don't you think?" She said it soft, but it landed hard. After she left, the house felt different. I kept turning that detail over in my head. Those late nights didn't start last night. This wasn't a crack in the glass. This was a double life I'd been too in love, or too blind, to see. There's only one place in Ironwood where the truth moves faster than Facebook: the bar. By noon, I was sitting on a stool at the Rusty Anchor, hands wrapped around a coffee I didn't really want. Jackson Reed, my best friend since high school and the guy who runs the place, leaned on the other side of the counter. "I saw the clip, man," he said quietly. "Didn't want to believe it. But it's her." I slid my phone across, thumb already on the paused live stream. "Forget her," I said. "Look at him." I hit play, then paused again right as he turned just enough toward the camera. Grainy, bar lighting, but the jawline was clear. The haircut, the expensive shirt. Jackson squinted, then swore under his breath. "Damn, that's Gavin Pierce." The name hit harder than I expected. "Who is he to you?" I asked, even though my gut already knew. "Regional manager," Jackson said. "Big shot at Carrington and Pierce. BMW, tailored suits, buys top-shelf whiskey, and tips like he's God's gift to women. Shows up here with clients like he owns the place." So that was it. While I was crawling under sinks and fixing busted heaters, my fiancée was in some bar, on the lap of the man her whole company treated like a king. Jackson stared at the screen a second longer, then slid my phone back. "If she's messing with him, man, that's not just cheating," he said. "That's career, promotions, bigger house, different life." Different life. Yeah, one I apparently didn't fit into. I thought about all the little comments Lindsay had made the last year. "How long are you going to keep fixing other people's broken stuff, Colton? Don't you ever want more than this small-town handyman thing?" I took a slow breath. "I bust my ass every day," I said. "I keep the lights on, pay the bills, put food on the table, and somehow I'm the one who's not enough." Jackson didn't argue. That almost hurt more. Here's the thing about being the good guy for too long. People start thinking good means weak, quiet means blind, calm means you won't do a damn thing when they spit in your face. I finished my coffee and stood up. "I'm done guessing," I said. "If she wants to live a double life, I want to see the whole script." On my way out, I pulled out my phone and scrolled to a name I hadn't called in a while. Darius Cole, Army buddy, now runs a security and investigations outfit in Billings. "Darius," I said when he picked up, "I need to find out how deep something goes." The next day, I parked my truck half a block from the Carrington and Pierce building and killed the engine. No radio, no podcast, just the tick of cooling metal and my own heartbeat. If Mrs. Porter was right, Lindsay clocked out around 5:30. At 5:32, the glass doors slid open and there she was. Work bag over her shoulder, hair neat, makeup fixed, like last night never happened. She didn't even glance toward home. Instead, she headed west, out of downtown, past the turnoff that would have taken her back to our street. I let a minivan slide between us, kept 2-3 cars back, not close enough to spook her. close enough not to lose her. 10 minutes later, she pulled into Redwood Ridge Apartments. Not exactly starter home territory. High-end, gated. Places for people with bonuses and company credit cards. I watched her park, get out, and walk into Building C like she'd done it 100 times. 20 minutes later, the door opened again. She came out laughing at something. Next to her, in a gray suit and expensive shoes, was Gavin Pierce. They didn't look nervous. They looked familiar. Easy. That was the moment the word mistake died. This wasn't a drunken one-off at a party. This was an affair. Practiced, comfortable, and real. I drove home from Redwood Ridge on autopilot. You ever make it all the way to your driveway and barely remember a single turn? That was me. I didn't go inside. Didn't want the couch, the photos on the wall, the ghost of the life I thought I had. I went straight to the garage instead. Tools on the pegboard, sawdust on the floor, the smell of oil and wood glue. That was my world. Things that broke, then got fixed. I sat on the old work stool and stared at my phone for a long minute, thumb hovering over a name I hadn't touched in years. Darius Cole. We'd been 20 when we shipped out together. We'd seen men lie, cheat, and run. We'd seen worse than this, but somehow this felt just as dirty. He picked up on the second ring. Colton? Been a while. My voice came out rough. Yeah, I need your help. I laid it out. The live stream, the bar, Gavin, Redwood Ridge. I kept it short. Facts only. He was quiet for a beat. So you want to know how deep this goes? I stared at the cracked concrete floor. No, I said. I want to know everything. 2 days later, an email from Darius dropped into my inbox with a single line. You sure you want this? I opened it anyway. First were the receipts. Timberline Inn, just off the highway. Same room number, over and over. Dates highlighted in yellow. I glanced at the timestamps. Wednesday nights, Friday nights. The same nights she'd told me she was swamped or closing a big account. Next were still images pulled from grainy security footage. Faces blurred by bad angles and cheap cameras, but the silhouettes were clear. Her, him, checking in, walking down the hall side by side, too close for coworkers. Then came the credit card statements Darius had flagged. Lindsay's card at nice restaurants 2 towns over. Lingerie stores she'd never worn a single thing from in front of me. Boutique gifts, hotel bar charges that lined up perfectly with those Timberline receipts. At the bottom, Darius had written, pattern, roughly 2 times a week. Duration, about 6 months. 6 months. While I was building a deck out back and talking about where the kids' swing set would go, she was checking in and out of hotel rooms with her boss. That kind of lie doesn't just sting. It rewrites every memory you thought was safe. The next email from Darius wasn't about Lindsay. It was about him, Gavin Pierce. Short version, Darius wrote, the guy's drowning. Big house, 2 kids in private school, club dues, a BMW he can't afford. He was never going to leave his wife, not out of love, out of debt. Then came the messages, lines polished from years of rehearsing. Once I make VP, you deserve better than some small-town handyman. When the time's right. I read them and felt nothing but a cold, tired familiarity. A script he'd used before. Darius proved it. 2 more women. 2 different branches. Same age, same position, same promises. I'll leave my wife. We'll start a new life. Just wait. Lindsay wasn't his soulmate. She wasn't his big love story. She was just next in line. And what hurt most wasn't losing her. It was knowing she threw me away for a man who never planned to choose her at all. 2 days later, Tessa called. I let it ring once. The second time, I picked up. Minutes later, she was on my couch, stiff, nervous, gripping her purse like it held her alibi. Colton, the live stream made things look worse than they were. I laughed once, flat and humorless. Worse? Tessa, I saw it with my own eyes. She swallowed hard. Lindsay was drunk. She messed up. She loves you. Tessa. I leaned forward. How long have you known about Gavin? Silence. She didn't nod. She didn't speak. She didn't have to. In that quiet, I realized the truth. It wasn't just Lindsay who left me in the dark. Her best friend did too. "Tessa," I said, "one last time. How long?" Something broke in her. Tears, shoulders shaking. 6 months, she whispered. It started at the company retreat. Everyone was drunk, and it just happened. 6 months, I repeated, like a sentence being read aloud. At first it was just physical, she said. But then Lindsay started falling for him. He said he'd leave his wife when he made VP. I stared at her. And the wedding? She couldn't look at me. She wanted to cancel. I told her to wait, to see if Gavin would choose her. So our wedding, the thing I was building a future around, had been nothing more than a prop to hide her exit plan. "Tessa," I asked quietly, "who else knew, or at least suspected?" She hesitated, and that alone was answer enough. Some of the guys, Mark, Tom, David, they heard things, saw things, connected the dots. And suddenly, memories slammed into place. The weird glances at game night, the half-jokes that didn't feel like jokes, conversations dying when I walked in. "So everybody knew," I said softly, "except me. Not one person thought I deserved the truth. Not one thought I should know my life was coming apart." I opened the door. "Go home, Tessa." She left, and with her went the last of the man who believed loyalty meant something. That night, I went to the workshop. Wood, tools, things that don't lie. I picked up a hammer, solid, real, a reminder of the kind of man I actually was. Then I opened my laptop again. This time, I didn't see pain. I saw evidence. 6 months of lies, patterns, receipts, a trail that didn't just incriminate Lindsay, it led straight to Gavin. I texted Darius. "I've made my decision." For the first time since that live stream shattered my life, I didn't feel like I was sinking. I felt like I was standing up. A couple nights later, I found myself back at Redwood Ridge, parked in the far corner of the lot. Light rain, just enough to beat on the windshield and blur the building lights. I knew Gavin's schedule now, knew when he liked to work late. His silver BMW rolled in right on time, smooth and smug like its owner. He parked near Building C, killed the engine, got out in a gray suit and loosened tie, phone in one hand, keys in the other. I stepped out of my truck. "Gavin Pierce?" He turned, squinting through the drizzle. Recognition hit his face, followed fast by a flash of fear he tried to swallow. "Can I help you?" he said, voice going corporate calm. "I think you already did," I replied. "Name's Colton Ward." That drained the rest of the color out of him. He tried to posture. "If this is about that post, I held up my phone. On the screen was a draft email addressed to William Carrington, HR at the company, and, thanks to Darius, Gavin's wife. Attachments, hotel receipts, screenshots, timestamps. His whole double life zipped up neat. "Next time you try to destroy a man's life," I said quietly, "make sure he doesn't know how to fight back." And then, without looking away from him, I hit send. The second my thumb hit send, Gavin lunged. "Give me the phone," he snapped, grabbing for my hand like he could pull the email back out of the air. I stepped sideways, caught his wrist, and twisted just enough to make his knees dip. Years of hauling lumber and a few bad months overseas had left me a lot stronger than some office lion in a tailored suit. "Careful," I said softly. "Last thing you need is witnesses seeing you attack the poor, unstable handyman." He yanked free, breathing hard, eyes wild. "You have no idea what you've done," he spat. "Oh, I do," I said. "Do you?" I left him standing in the drizzle, staring at a life that had about 30 seconds left before impact. By morning, it hit. William Carrington accepted Gavin Pierce's resignation effective immediately. That's how the email phrased it. But Ironwood translated it fast. "Cheating boss exposed. Fired on the spot." Channel 5 ran the story. The Chronicle followed. My name got dragged in again. Some folks calling me a hero, others saying I'd gone too far. My phone lit up non-stop. Lindsay, William, unknown numbers. I didn't answer a single one. I'd thrown the first real punch. Now I was waiting to see who bled. It didn't take long. By late afternoon, there was pounding on my front door like the house was on fire. I opened it to find Lindsay on the porch, hair a mess, eyes red, makeup smeared like she'd been crying for hours. For a second, I almost saw the girl I'd asked to marry me. Then she opened her mouth. "You destroyed everything," she screamed. "He lost his job because of you." I leaned on the doorframe, arms crossed. "Good," I said. "That's what happens when you treat people like they're disposable." She stared at me like I'd slapped her. "We love each other, Colton. You don't understand. This isn't some fling. He loves me." I almost laughed. Instead, I stepped back, grabbed a folded piece of paper off the kitchen table and laid it down between us. 2 names, 2 women, dates, branch locations, little notes from Darius, same script, different actresses. "Jennifer, Melissa," I said. "Recognize either of those? You're not his first real love, Lindsay. You're just next on the list." Her hand started to shake as she dug her phone out, dialing Gavin right there on my porch like she could prove me wrong with one call. It rang and rang, went to voicemail. She tried again. Same thing. No answer, no text, no, "I'll fix this." Just silence. And right then, it finally started to sink in for her. She hadn't just lost me. She'd bet everything on a man who wouldn't even pick up the phone. When the third call to Gavin went straight to voicemail, something in Lindsay snapped. Her face twisted, grief turning into pure rage, and she rounded on me like I'd pushed the buttons on his phone myself. "I hate you," she hissed. "You're a monster, Colton. You ruined his career. You ruined everything." I let her words sit there a second. I was tired of defending myself to people who never defended me. "I didn't cheat," I said quietly. "I didn't lie. I didn't live a double life." She shook her head, tears spilling over. "You didn't have to destroy him." I stepped a little closer, just enough for her to have to look at me. "You threw away a man who showed up every day," I said, "who paid the bills, fixed the leaks, planned a future with you, for a man who won't even pick up your call when it gets messy." For a moment, her eyes broke. Then she shoved past me, yanked the door open. "I hope you're happy," she spat, before slamming it so hard the windows rattled. I saw Mrs. Porter's curtains twitch next door. Great, another show for the neighborhood. Inside, the house went quiet. In my head, it was anything but. That night I found out who my friends really were. The first text came from Mark. "Man, you went too far. Getting a guy fired? Not cool." Then Tom, "You could have handled this like an adult privately. Blowing it up online and at work was low." Then David, always the diplomat. "We get you're hurt, but torching people's careers isn't the answer. Lindsay's a wreck. Gavin's done. This isn't you, Colton." I stared at the screen, reading them over and over. These were the same men who'd stood in my kitchen, eaten my food, called me solid, reliable, the good guy. The same men who'd heard rumors, seen signs, maybe even known the full story, and said nothing. Now suddenly I was the problem. Not the cheating, not the lies, not the months of sneaking around. Just me, finally swinging back. I typed one reply and sent it to all 3. "You had your chance to do the right thing. You didn't." No paragraphs, no explanations. The dots appeared like they were typing, then disappeared. And that told me everything I needed to know. Lindsay and Gavin hadn't just cost me a relationship. They'd cleaned out my friend list too. A couple nights later, I did what every man in a small town does when his life's on fire. I went to the bar. Jackson poured me a beer without asking and left me alone at the end of the counter. We didn't need to talk. Sometimes just having someone standing 10 feet away who doesn't think you're the villain is enough. I'd barely taken 2 sips when the door opened and Trouble walked in wearing work boots and cheap cologne. Mark, Tom, David. They spotted me instantly and didn't even pretend otherwise. They made a beeline straight for my stool. "Well, well," Mark said, loud enough for half the place to hear. "Small town handyman, big hero now, huh?" Tom smirked. "Look at you. Guy takes down one cheating boss and suddenly thinks he's some kind of avenger." David stepped in closer, breath full of whiskey. "You're not a hero, Colton. You're just a bitter, small man. Lindsay deserved better." The room went quiet. Chairs creaked. Someone turned the music down. Then David said it, extra loud. You couldn't keep your woman satisfied, so you burned the whole town. Something inside me clicked from hurt to finished. 30 seconds later, all three of them were on the floor, and I was standing there breathing hard, wondering when exactly I stopped turning the other cheek. By morning, Ironwood had a new video. Me inside the rusty anchor, putting 3 men on the floor. Men who once called me brother. No audio, just fists, motion, and whatever story people decided to invent. Local hero. Unhinged. Toxic masculinity. Serves them right. Some clients canceled jobs. They didn't say why, but they didn't need to. Nobody wants the guy from the fight video fixing their furnace. Jackson slid a soda across the bar. Trending again, huh? I exhaled. Funny. You defend yourself 3 times and suddenly that's your whole identity, Darius called that evening. They're planning something, he said. Mark, Tom, David. What kind of something? They're aligning a narrative, calling you unstable, dangerous. And they want a scene at the Fall Harvest Festival. Big crowd, lots of phones. They poke you, push you, provoke you. You swing once and the whole town films it. I stared out at the yard behind my house, the same place I'd once imagined kids playing, dogs running. They didn't just want revenge, they wanted me ruined. Fine, I said. If they want public, I'll give them public. Find everything, I told Darius. I want to know exactly who I'm dealing with. The files came the next day. Tom. Affair with his secretary. Receipts, room numbers, airtight. Mark. Money siphoned from his construction company to cover gambling losses. David. Calls and payments to a dealer in Billings. Not small stuff. I scrolled through the evidence calmly, like I was reading repair instructions. These were the same men who called me unstable. These were the same men ready to crucify me in public. Turns out they weren't standing on moral high ground. They were standing on rotting floorboards. I closed the laptop. All right, I said. The festival's going to be interesting. That night, I sat alone in the workshop with my laptop open, the only light in the room. One by one, I played the audio files Darius had sent. Tom whispering to his secretary, David talking prices with his guy in Billings, Mark joking about borrowing from his own company to cover gambling losses. Screenshots, bank records, call logs, all laid out in neat little folders with their names on them. I thought about the cookouts at my place. Burgers on the grill, beers in our hands. These same men laughing in my backyard, calling me brother, slapping my back, telling me how lucky Lindsay was. Then I heard Mark's voice again in my head. You're just a bitter small man. Lindsay deserved better. I remembered David's words at the bar. You couldn't keep your woman satisfied, so you burned the whole town. My jaw tightened. If I do this, I said to nobody, there's no going back. I sat there a long time, staring at the play buttons, thinking about who I used to be and who they'd forced me to become. Finally, I closed my eyes and said it out loud. Actions have consequences. The fall festival was coming. So was the bill. The Ironwood Fall Harvest Festival is supposed to be the best day of the year. Tents lined Main Street, selling kettle corn, chili, homemade pies. Kids ran around with painted faces, chasing each other between hay bales. A country band tuned up near the gazebo, fiddles and steel guitar drifting through the cool October air. I pulled in wearing jeans, boots, a flannel shirt, and my old ball cap. Just another local guy at the festival. Nobody special. But inside, I wasn't there for caramel apples and live music. Inside, I was walking into a battlefield. It didn't take long to spot them. By the cider stand, like they belonged to each other. Mark, Tom, David, Lindsay. Huddled up, talking low, stealing glances around the square like they were waiting on a show to start. Every so often, one of them would scan the crowd, looking for me. They wanted me to explode. They wanted crazy Colton to give them exactly the footage they'd planned for. I looked past them to the small stage at the end of the street. Microphone, speakers, 100 sets of ears waiting to be told what to think. If they wanted a public scene, fine. They just weren't going to be the ones directing it. I walked past the cider stand, past the games and the kids and the pumpkin displays, straight toward the little stage at the end of Main. The festival organizer, Mrs. Walsh, stood off to the side with a clipboard. She's known me since I was a kid. Mrs. Walsh, I said, keeping my voice steady. Mind if I borrow the mic for a minute? Just want to say something to the town. She studied my face for a second, then nodded. Make it quick, honey. I stepped up, tapped the microphone. The thump echoed across the square, over the music and the chatter. Can I get your attention for a moment? Voices dipped. People turned. Kids stopped running. My name is Colton Ward, I said, and if you've lived in Ironwood longer than 5 minutes, chances are I've fixed something in your house. A roof, a busted pipe, a furnace that died in January. A few people chuckled. A few didn't. Lately, I went on, some folks have been calling me unstable, violent, dangerous, saying I went too far. I looked out over the crowd, found Mark, Tom, David, Lindsay. In a small town like this, I said, the truth has a way of coming out. I pulled my phone from my pocket and plugged it into the sound system. There was a small hiss of feedback as the connection clicked in. My thumb hovered over the first file for half a heartbeat. Then I hit play. David's voice came out of the speakers, clear as day, a little rougher than at the rusty anchor, but unmistakable. You got the same stuff as last time? Yeah, I'll take the usual. Maybe bump it up a bit. I've got cash. The square went quiet. You could hear the fryer from the corn dog stand across the way. I watched heads turn, eyes lock onto David Mercer near the back. He'd gone pale. The recording went on. Talk of price, amounts, meeting spots off the highway near Billings. When it ended, I didn't explain. I just queued up the next one. Tom's voice, soft and sly. Same room as last time? Yeah, she thinks I'm at a council meeting. She has no clue. You know I can't have this on my work email. Text me the room number. Across the crowd, Susan Becker, Tom's wife, stood very still, one hand over her mouth, eyes fixed on her husband. Murmurs rolled through the square. People stepped back from David, from Tom. These, I said into the mic, are the men who said I was the dangerous one. I didn't give the crowd time to settle. One more, I said, thumb already moving. Then I'm done. Mark's voice hit the speakers next. Too loud, too confident. I'll pay it back when I'm up again, relax. I just moved some numbers around. The guys in accounting don't even look that close. I had to cover the casino hit somehow. There was a pause on the tape, then his laugh. It's my company anyway. What's a few thousand here and there? Out in the crowd, a couple of guys from Holloway Construction let out sharp, bitter laughs. You told us we were cutting hours because of slow business, one of them shouted. Not because you were feeding machines in Great Falls. Mark went red. Real red. The kind that starts in the neck and crawls up. I stopped the audio and brought the mic back up. These, I said, sweeping my eyes across the square, are the men who called me unstable, bitter, dangerous. I let that hang. So you tell me, I asked, voice steady, who's the real villain here? It wasn't a sermon. It wasn't a plea. It was a mirror, and I made them all look. I saw it the second the question left my mouth. Mark's jaw clenched. Tom's eyes went dark. David's hands balled into fists. Shame has a way of turning into fury when there's an audience. They pushed through the crowd like a wave breaking loose. You son of a... David roared, sprinting the last few steps and swinging wild for my head. I stepped sideways, grabbed his arm, and used his own momentum to send him crashing shoulder first into the edge of the stage. He went down hard, air whooshing out of him. Tom came next, gripping a beer bottle by the neck like he'd watched one too many bar fights on TV. Before he could bring it down, somebody in the front row yanked his arm. He lost his balance and hit the grass, the bottle flying harmlessly away. Then there was Mark. He didn't shout, he didn't swing. He reached into his jacket and pulled out a folding knife. The sun caught the blade as he snapped it open. The crowd screamed and scattered, parents grabbing kids, people tripping over chairs to get back. And right then, in front of the whole town, it got real clear who was dangerous and who was just done being stepped on. When the knife came out, my body remembered things my mind hadn't thought about in years. I didn't run. There was a metal folding chair leaning against the edge of the stage. I grabbed it with both hands and swung it up between us just as Mark lunged. The blade hit the frame with a sharp, ugly scrape and stuck there, metal on metal. For a second we were locked like that, him pushing, me holding, eyes inches apart. I could smell his breath, fear and rage and cheap beer. Then I twisted. Years of drills, of ugly training days in the heat, came back all at once. I wrenched the chair sideways, ripping the knife from his grip, then drove the side of it hard into his temple. He dropped. Just folded. The crowd screamed, then hesitated. A beat later, someone shouted, "He was defending himself. We all saw the knife." Voices rose in agreement. "I got it on video," another yelled. I let the chair clatter to the stage and stepped back, chest heaving, hands open to show I wasn't going any further. I don't start fights. But that afternoon, in front of the whole town, I sure as hell finished one. After the cops were called and a few brave souls stepped in to check on Mark, the crowd opened up like a tide pulling back. That's when I saw her. Lindsay, standing by the cider stand, face white as the paper cups stacked next to her. She looked smaller somehow. Not the woman from the live stream, not the one who'd screamed at me on my own porch. Just a person whose whole story was coming apart. As I walked toward her, people moved without me asking. A quiet path opened. No pushing, no shouting, just eyes watching. "Hi, Lindsay," I said when I reached her. Her mouth moved, but nothing came out. I slipped a plain envelope from my jacket and held it out. "These are for you." She took it with shaking hands, glanced down, and slid the photos halfway out. Gavin at Disney, arm around a woman and 2 kids, all wearing matching shirts. Another picture, him signing papers in front of a stucco house with a Florida realtor smiling beside him. On top of the stack, the printout of a property record. Pierce, Gavin, and Emily, joint owners. Jacksonville, FL. Color drained from her face as fast as it had from his the night I hit send on that email. He hadn't been ruined. He'd just moved on, with the life that was actually his. And she finally understood. She'd blown up everything for a man who'd never planned to take her with him. She kept staring into the papers like they might change if she blinked enough times. "How did you?" Lindsay finally whispered. "Private investigators," I said. "Turns out you weren't the first. Or the last." Her eyes snapped up to mine. "There were others before you," I went on. "Different towns, same promises, same script." She shook her head, backing up a step. "No, he told me—" "Yeah," I cut in. "He told them too." I didn't yell, didn't need to. "You traded a man who showed up," I said. "Who paid the bills, who put food on the table, who was building you a life, for a man who won't even text you back once it gets messy." Her legs gave out and she hit her knees right there on the gravel, the envelope spilling, photos fluttering around her like trash in the wind. Phones came up. People filmed. Some looked away. Some didn't. She reached for me like she thought I might help her up out of this. I stepped back. I wasn't there to catch her anymore. I'd already spent 8 years trying to save a woman who'd been digging her way out of my life the whole time. So I turned and walked back toward the stage. The mic was still there, humming softly, waiting. I picked it up one last time and looked out over the town I'd grown up in. People I'd fixed roofs for, changed filters for, pulled out of snowbanks in February. "I'm not perfect," I said, "but I never lied about who I am." I let that sit for a beat. "I'm a handyman. I crawl under your houses when the pipes burst. I'm the guy you call when your furnace dies and it's 10 below. I keep the heat on and the rain out. That's who I am." A few heads nodded. A few didn't. "I didn't start any of this," I went on. "I didn't cheat. I didn't sneak around. I didn't live 2 different lives in 2 different rooms." My voice stayed calm. "Kindness is not weakness," I said. "But if you push a good man too far, don't be surprised when he pushes back." For a moment, nobody moved. No music, no chatter, just the wind and a couple of flags snapping on their poles. Then someone started clapping. Then another. I set the mic down, turned away from the stage, and let Ironwood decide for itself what kind of man I really was. I hadn't even made it back to my truck when the cruisers rolled in, lights flashing, engines low and mean against the noise of the festival starting back up. 2 deputies stepped out, hands resting near their holsters, not on them. They knew me. I'd fixed one guy's porch last winter. "Colton," the older one said, "we need to talk about what just happened." "Sure," I answered. "Right here's fine." Before they could even start, a woman from the crowd stepped up. "He was defending himself," she said. "That other one pulled a knife. I saw it." A guy in a ball cap came forward next. I got it on video, he added, already scrolling through his phone. You can see the knife clear as day. More voices chimed in. He tried to stab him. Colton backed off till they rushed him. The deputies listened, watched the footage, asked a few steady, calm questions. No raised voices, no accusations. One of them finally looked at me and nodded. We'll file the report, he said, but from what we're seeing, it looks like you were defending yourself. No cuffs, no backseat ride. For the first time in a long time, it felt like the world wasn't automatically buying the worst story about me. It took about 48 hours for the festival video to hit the internet. Different angles, different phones. Same story, me on a stage, 3 supposed good guys charging, one of them flashing steel before hitting the ground. Comments poured in. He stood up for himself. Good. Still think he's too extreme. There were kids there. Glad someone finally exposed those clowns. Anger problem. Stay away. My business phone reflected the split. A couple old clients called to quietly cancel upcoming work. Hey, Colton, with everything going on, we're going to put the remodel on hold. They didn't say it, but I heard it anyway. We don't want the man from the videos in our house. But then there were the others. Hey man, one farmer said. Saw the whole thing. We trust a man who fights for what's right. You still doing barn repairs? Another text. You busy next week? Need someone solid. Tired of dealing with fake people. For a while I tried to keep score. Who stayed, who left, who believed what. Then one afternoon, sitting in my truck between jobs, it hit me. I'd spent most of my life trying to make everybody comfortable. Look where that got me. I can't please them all. And for the first time, I didn't even want to. After the festival, life didn't snap back into place. It just shifted. There were days I'd drive past the Welcome to Ironwood sign and wonder what it'd feel like to keep going. Just stay on the highway till the gas ran out and start over somewhere nobody knew my name or my story. Darius called one night. I've got some work in Billings, he said. Security contracts, some investigations. Could use a guy who doesn't scare easy and knows which end of a wrench to hold. You interested? Part of me was. New city, new faces, no whispers when I walked into a diner. Then Jackson threw his hat in. You ever think about expanding Hale Home Repairs? He asked, wiping down the bar. Hire a helper or two? Folks still need roofs fixed, man. And most of them still trust you more than they trust each other. I realized something then. I wasn't trapped. Not in this town. Not in this story. I had options. Stay and build. Leave and start fresh. Or both. In my own time. What I wasn't going to be anymore was the guy something happened to. Whatever came next, it was going to be something I chose. Not something I just survived. A few nights later, I was back where I always end up when my head's too loud. The workshop. There was an old wooden chair on the bench, one I'd been meaning to fix for months. Cracked leg, loose joints, seat worn smooth from years of use. I couldn't help thinking about that metal chair from the festival, the way it felt in my hands, the sound it made when it caught Mark instead of me. I sanded the rough edges, glued the split, clamped it tight, let my hands do what they knew how to do while my mind wandered. I used to fix broken things for a living, I said to the empty room. Turns out sometimes you just have to let them stay broken. The relationship, the friendships, the version of me who thought keeping the peace was the same thing as being strong. Once the glue set, I tested the chair. Rock solid, no wobble, no creak. I turned off the lights, leaving that one chair standing there in the middle of the shop, stronger than it had been before it broke. For the first time in a long time, I realized I knew exactly how it felt. If you've ever been lied to, you know this pain. And if you've ever been lied to publicly, turned into the punchline while everyone else smiles and looks away, you know it hits different. The cheating hurt. But what cut the deepest wasn't just Lindsay and Gavin. It was realizing I was the last one to know. That my name, my trust, my whole future had been treated like a joke. Here's what I learned the hard way. Your name, your peace, your self-respect. You don't trade those for anybody. Not for status. Not for someone who treats you like you're disposable when things get messy. I'm not saying I handled everything perfect. I am saying I'm not sorry I stood up. I'm not sorry I stopped letting other people write my story. So let me ask you something, man to man. If it were you, what would you have done? Drop it in the comments. Tell me if you're with me or if you think I went too far. Pick a side. And if you know somebody who's been through this kind of betrayal, share this story with him. Hit follow, hit subscribe, because this might be my story, but it sure as hell isn't only mine.